Welcome in. It's an icy Thursday morning here on the Chris Duel Show, AM 1300 The Zone, ticket 760. But as of right now, I think we're all on the air, and large part thanks to our man Dave EVERETT holding it down in the production studio. I'm coming to you live from my guest bedroom. We also call it the grandparents' suite at Casa de Sweeney. They were actually supposed to come up today from Galveston. Not going to happen thanks to the weather we're having. I see Paul Alexander has made it into the iHeart San Antonio studios. Paul, how was your drive in this morning?
I would just tell everybody, please respect this. It's real. Be nice to yourself. Be good to each other. We don't need a rodeo out there. So, yeah, got in okay. Wondering what the drive back is going to be like as it gets colder and we get some freezing precip. But, again, so far, so good. Delighted to be here.
They sent me this home kit. I got it over the holiday break, but didn't have a new laptop until this week. So far, everything is looking great. It's all brand new. I hope it sounds great. Once again, Chris, still on that forgiveness tour. Little retreat he's gone on in order to release himself of the hate and anger he's felt towards Kawhi Leonard. He will be back with us tomorrow. A new man, probably. I mean, you might not even recognize him, but that is something definitely to look forward to. We are live, of course, on Ticket 760 and AM 1300 The Zone and on your iHeartRadio app. We are also streaming on Facebook and YouTube as well as Twitter. If you want to check us out and join in on the conversation, we love seeing your comments throughout the show. And Dave EVERETT, recently a Twitter user. I see you have updated your Twitter. You finally added a profile picture. I believe it is you in a Stanley Cup. I'm assuming that is of your St. Louis Blues team, the recent one.
Yeah, that's from about, it was pre-pandemic, so it's probably 2019 is when they won the Stanley Cup. So, yeah, it's a little old picture, but that's the only one I could get up there soon enough.
What a weird world we're living in. Pre-pandemic, current pandemic, and eventually we'll have post-pandemic. Now, Paul, I know you and Radically Rational, you're big on Facebook. Do you have Twitter? Because we just convinced Dave, after all this time, to finally jump on the Twitter platform.
I do, and the president of the company, my wife, Joe Alexander, is really encouraging me to use Twitter more than I do. And as usual, she's right, so I'm going to do that. And by the way, Dave EVERETT is indeed a hero. He just came in here and saved me from myself, and we were able to punch up the video link here. And this is just so cool. How long has this been going on? Got Dr. Dave's Ultimate Prep. We got some fun stuff to talk about. But the only thing I want to mention is that I'm getting my own voice back in my ears about 2 seconds later. And for me, hearing myself once is plenty. So if we could do something to address that, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, we will definitely do what we can there, because I get it. And also, just like hearing myself at all is no thank you. No thanks. It's so weird to hear yourself back. Dave, of course, if you want to follow him on Twitter, he is at David J. EVERETT. EVERETT spelled OEHLER. Just for all of you guys, because he's already tweeting as well. He has started tweeting. He's not an egg anymore. He's up and running officially now that we've got him going. If you want to hit me up, I'm at Shannon B. Sweeney. I've just posted a photo of my home studio setup. So if you're curious as to what that looks like, that is currently a thing. I also, because this is a guest room, I have a TV in here, but the TV is so large, the only place it'll fit is on my desk. And so it is like right in front of me. If you're on our video and you see my face switch from blue to green, it's because the TV is on. I've got it on. Local news. We've got a lot of school closures. Pretty much every school district in the Austin area closed today. Some even closed tomorrow, and thinking that it'll still be icy on the road. So just make sure before you wake your kid up early and make them get dressed and go through the whole thing. And did you pack your backpack? Did you do your homework? Did you grab your lunch? Just make sure they have school first before you make them go through all that. Okay? Don't be that parent. Don't be that. I wouldn't want you to be that parent. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to help you be a better parent.
We could all use some help. Hey, Dave, need to ask you a question because you and I are just getting to know you. Tell me about the St. Louis ties. talking about the blues and stuff, because I spent like the first 2/3 of the 80s, if you remember the 80s, and some people do, in St. Louis. And today actually reminds me of the time I spent in St. Louis, because it was every darn day in the winter driving in the ice. And it was quite the adventure. Man, absolutely, which proves that you are certainly of a certain vintage. This was really a blow ego to me yesterday. Some very nice person in St. Louis, and there's a club there that remembers the St. Louis football Cardinals, and I'm part of a Facebook group there, everything. So a nice person posted a very lengthy highlights package that I did about a game between the Cardinals and the Giants back in 1981. And it was such a nice gesture. And then you see response from the other people in the club. And one guy says, I don't remember that guy. I know I was only there 8 years. Group there, everything.
Yeah. So, but my ties, I'm originally from St. Louis. I lived there for first 25 years of my life. And I went to Albuquerque, New Mexico, then San Antonio. I've been here for about 18 years now.
Wow. St. Louis is a lovely community.
And you're right. This is St. Louis winter weather, except I was talking to my mom yesterday, who still lives in St. Louis, and they have about 6 inches of snow on the ground.
Well, they can have it. Yeah, I saw some CNN reporter at 3 a.m. this morning out in Kiel Plaza. And she was doing the walking and talking thing and scraping the snow and all. So they can have that.
And not one bit. I don't miss it one bit. Although cold rain is worse than snow, at least I think it is. Cold and rain is worse than cold and snow.
Oh, absolutely.
But here it lasts for a day or two, and there it lasts for 3 months.
There was not that, this is all about my reminiscences of St. Louis, but there was this really crazy snow and ice storm. This would have been about 1983. And I had been doing a basketball game between Missouri and Kansas State in Manhattan, Kansas, and had flown back in this little, flying apple crate as this blizzard came in. And it was really frightening. And we got sideways on the runway when we landed in St. Louis. So I get back home and I get a call from the station, KMOV, and they say, look, grab some clothes because you're going to be bivouacked here for a couple of weeks. And they dispatched an all-terrain vehicle to pick me up, took me to the station, and we were sequestered there for 2 weeks.
Was that the Great Blizzard of 82?
That, it had to be. Absolutely had to be.
We got like 15 inches overnight.
That would be the one.
Yeah, that was a mess. I remember my mom and my dad were in Hawaii at the time. They're on vacation. I missed like a week of school because, there's all the city was shut down with 15 inches of snow on the ground. I
had never seen anything like it. And so they only brought in like one news guy and, they had all the weather people in, and one sports guy. And you're lucky it was me.
You.
So, normally I'm working with a partner and sadly a beloved partner who passed away last week, and I miss him terribly. But I was like the one sports guy. So you're doing, 15,000 sportscasts every day, 7 days a week. You're wearing the same clothes. You're not really nice to be around. But that was quite the experience. If you wanted to live through St. Louis TV, that was it.
Yeah, that was a crazy time.
15 feet of snow, 1982. I can't relate. I can't relate. The closest I have is last year's winter storm.
I wish I couldn't relate, but unfortunately, I remember it very, very well.
Well, for all those out there, please stay safe. If you don't have to drive today, I would suggest you don't. You stay home. You wait for the roads to clear up and stay warm. And hopefully everyone keeps their power and their water. Hopefully this is not a repeat of last year. I know if you went to HEB at all this week, or Costco or Sam's, you think it might be because people are freaking out. I think we'll all be okay though. Just stay warm today. It is the Chris Duel Show, and today, because of yesterday, was National Signing Day. Of course, Coach A and I talked about, it's great that we get these kids. It's huge for those kids, right? They are officially saying, this is where I'm going to school. This is where I'm going to play. This is where I will, at least back in the good old days, spend a couple of years at school and not decide to transfer. So it's a big celebration for them. But Paul and I, we're not big on the stars, right? We're a show me, don't
It's
tell me
not.
crowd. Let's wait to see what you do when you get on the field, because you can be a 5-star all you want, but if you come and play like a 2-star, then who really cares? But lots of great audio bits coming from some of our favorites yesterday from National Signing Day. One of them being Jimbo Fisher, who kind of went on a rant, kind of calling out a Lane Kiffin, a Nick Saban, writers from around the country who have kind of suggested that some schools like A&M have been using the new NIL deals to basically pay recruits to come, right? It's kind of been a workaround is what they are suggesting. And so our poll question for the day over on our Twitter pages and 1300 The Zone and Ticket 760, we're asking, do you believe that some schools or football programs are using NIL to buy recruits? We've got three options for you today: yes, no, and it's complicated, which is where my vote goes, Paul, because I think it is complicated. This is still the first year that we're doing this. There's a lot of deals that need to be, ironed out, worked on, what is and is not legal. I know a couple weeks ago when Texas announced the Heart program for the offensive line that would guarantee guys $50,000 a season to play as an O lineman for the University of Texas, that was huge. And a lot of people said, wait, that looks like you're paying them to come to the university, but it's all through boosters. It's not the coaches passing them that money. But Coach A, before we listen to Jimbo and his little rant yesterday, I wanted to get your thoughts on the poll question and where you currently stand.
I would be somewhere between yes and it's complicated. The one thing I know for sure is that the answer is not no. There are haves and have-nots in college football. There always have been. This is just going to widen that gulf in terms of the resources that a certain school or a given school has to attract these kind of recruits. So the answer is not no, and we're going to have to see how all this shakes out. I know that even Nick Saban kind of got his nose out of joint a little bit yesterday, saying that, we've never bought players because the implication was they were telling Alabama, well, now it's legal. It's legal to do what you've always been doing. And Nick, for some reason, took exception to that. So I get it. But yeah, if it's like a university's endowment academically, if you can fund your entire offensive line, the idea that you don't have an advantage is just not being honest.
Well, Dave, if we can cue up Jimbo here. He, of course, did a presser like most coaches yesterday following National Signing Day. Jimbo, ever since he stepped on foot in College Station, has been all about A&M, has had their back at every turn, and he's done great things for that football program and has brought them back into the national conversation. But now A&M is being thrown into a conversation that they don't want to be in, and here's Jimbo on that. Jimbo Fisher following National Signing Day yesterday. Coach A, I see you giggling
Yeah.
throughout that. I love Jimbo's voice, and Angry Jimbo is my favorite version to get from him. But what makes you giggle about Jimbo right there?
Well, first of all, it is on with Lane Kiffin. And I love coaching feuds. I love that. You know, all the way back to Woody and Bo, the more they hate each other, the better it is for all of us. Like you, I like Jimbo. I really do. And my first encounter with Jimbo is back when I was coaching high school football. I went to some coaching clinics, and I really wanted to be in his sessions on the 3-step passing game. And the guy was just absolutely brilliant. And what was great about him, Shannon, is he took these really pretty complex concepts and he was able to boil them down and make them really simple. And he's sitting there with a bunch of coaches and he's got his pen out and he's drawing plays on a cocktail napkin. And it's like, this is great. And his motor does burn hot. The one thing is sometimes Jimbo, in my opinion, can be his own worst enemy, because he wants the attention, he wants the spotlight, but he's not really adept at handling it all that much. And even going back to the thing we saw yesterday, all these ridiculous star and computer rankings on who has the best recruiting class, like you would know, and they take it out to the 15th decimal place or something like that. Jimbo certainly can handle a program the magnitude of Texas A&M, but there's some of the details, some of the housekeeping on that he clearly doesn't enjoy. But I enjoy the fact that he doesn't enjoy it. It entertains me. So I'm all in on Jimbo. And I hope they actually get into a fist fight.
Jimbo is the gift that keeps on giving, I think, for fans of college football everywhere. Yes, he's brought that program back to the national spotlight, so A&M fans are more than happy with him. But as a Texas Longhorn, from the moment he stepped on campus, it's been nothing but a treat for me, especially when he takes the mic. We'll probably play that Jimbo audio for you again later in the show. And we got some Lincoln audio for you because he's kind of being a bit of a hypocrite, if you ask me, with some of his comments he made yesterday following National Signing Day. Up next, we got our high five play of the day. I think you're going to enjoy this one. We've also got James Allen this morning and Andy Everett to hopefully he's getting to his destination. He's heading out to meet up with UTSA basketball. We'll talk about their signing day as well as the game that UTSA men's basketball has tonight and so much more. Salty Shakedown, Sports Birthday, Sports History with Coach A. Paul Alexander, Dave Ohler, and me, Shannon B. Sweeney. You're listening to the Chris Duel Show on Ticket 760 and AM 1300 The Zone.
You're hearing a little bit of your return coming back.
A lot, yeah.
Okay, that I'm not too sure how to fix.
Well, I've kind of gotten used to it. So.
Okay, the only thing that might help you is see this mute button right here. Because what you can do is that's what I have to do in there sometimes.
I understand.
That might work, but I'm not too sure if that's what you're hearing or not.
We'll just deal with it.
Okay. All right, man.
Thanks. Appreciate it. I'm kind of confusing myself. So am I making any sense here? Because
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you sound great. See, and the other part of it is that I'm running your audio.
Oh, and I get that.
I'm running your audio and Shannon's audio through the same pot, where before it's two separate mic pots. So I think that may be part of it.
I think that's probably it. Yeah. And I get it. Okay. What you gonna do?
Yeah. Also, like I said, this is the first time trying this, so we're kind of working bugs out. On when we're taking callers, I'm assuming Shannon can hear all that audio on her end.
Right.
I know you'll be able to hear it.
Okay.
So once we get guests on, that might be a little squirrely too. But you may have.
Hey, we'll just ride the toboggan all morning.
Exactly. So you may have to handle that. If we have a problem there, you might have to handle the phone interviews.
We'll figure it out.
But, yeah.
Okay. Sure.
I'm assuming everything will work, but I'm assuming everything works every day.
I love it. Let's be optimistic. Okay, sure.
What is it? Probably that there's a way to have something for just Shannon.
I think we'll just.
But if you need me to tell Shannon something, just
okay, just on the talk back.
Tell me
yeah, okay.
Back and I'll.
Okay, yeah, we'll be fine. Yeah.
We're back. It's the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. Join in by dialing 1-800-707-9760.
Welcome back to the Chris Duel Show on a cold and what sounds like to me right now a sleeting very heavily Thursday. I just went downstairs to heat up my coffee because the one thing about working from home is there's no line for the bathroom. I can get as much coffee as I want and not have to worry about someone else being at the Keurig at the same time. And I could check out my window into my backyard, and it's white out there. It is white. I'm not sure if it's ice. I'm not sure if it's snow. All I know is I'm staying inside and putting my heater to use this morning. Coach A is in the iHeart Studios in San Antonio, sitting in for Chris, and Dave is helping us piece it all together this morning, as this is my first go with the new equipment that iHeart just sent me. I set it up earlier this week. They sent me a microphone, obviously, that's what I'm speaking out of, along with everything else, but they also sent picture instructions, which is great. I'm a visual learner. That's what I need. You put the star in the star hole, that kind of thing. And the instructions said, you screw the microphone onto the mic stand. I'm like, I've done this before. I can get this one done. What they did not say is that there is a small silver doohickey that's already in the mic screwed in there that you had to pull out in order to fit the microphone onto the screw stand. And so I ended up FaceTiming an engineer because I'm the sharpest pencil in the coloring pencil box, and did that whole thing and was like, it's not working. What am I going to do? A whole mental breakdown. But here we are. It seems to be up and running. Thanks to Mr. Dave Ehler. We seem to be off to a great start. I don't know about you, Paul, but I'm feeling more confident as we go along here this morning.
Yeah, but let me say this. I'll guarantee you this. Whoever wrote those instructions, when they get the news that you're having difficulty following them, it's going to be your fault. That is true of anybody who ever wrote a set of instructions, and it is especially true. I'm going to say it. I love them. That is true of any broadcast engineer in the history of broadcasting. I'm good. We made this equipment perfectly. You just don't know how to run it.
Yeah.
It's job security.
It was just missing that, oh, by the way, there's already a metal screw in there that you're going to need to take out, and you're not going to have the appropriate tools to do it. You're going to have to figure something out. That's
well, you should have known that, Shannon.
You know what?
That's
I
on
should
you.
have. I should have expected something. Everything seemed too perfect. Life was going too well for there not to be some sort of screw in my way during the process. But let's go to something a little happier, a little more joyful, because we do this every morning at about this time. It is the high five play of the day. The High Five Play of the Day, of course, brought to you by High Five. Two great Austin area locations, one out in Lakeway with that double-decker bowling alley, laser tag, and so much more. And then, of course, Anderson Lane, Central Austin, Texas. They've got darts. If you're a big Ted Lasso fan, you know that darts is a huge part of that show. You could take that up and get ready for season 3. They've also got bowling, a great video game center, and a Topgolf room where you can play golf, you can play different PGA courses, and zombie dodgeball, which, of course, is one of my personal favorites. There's nothing better than zombies coming at you and having to hit them with a couple of dodgeballs. That's a great way to spend any evening, if you ask me. Today's high five, a bit of a different one, but I saw this actually from Chris Almendaris, the president of the Round Rock Express. Of course, their season is Unlike the MLB, there will be a AAA season. We do know that there is a schedule out, so that will be happening no matter what the MLB decides to do. But he shared this yesterday on his social media, and I was so excited to see this. Our high five today is the movie that will make its premiere at South by Southwest this year, Facing Nolan. So many people know and revere Nolan Ryan. You hear the name, you automatically, I think of a couple of things. I believe there was a very popular mound fight that took place. I wasn't alive for his career. He played his last year in '93, the year I was born. But I've met many members of the Ryan family. I've been around Mr. Nolan Ryan himself. He's obviously huge when it comes to the Astros, when it comes to the Round Rock Express, when it comes to the Texas Rangers. He's still a very influential figure in the world of baseball, in the Central Texas area, in the Texas area, and a name that I think a lot of people of baseball and sports know and love. And so I'm super excited for this film, Paul, Facing Nolan. It's going to feature a lot of different athletes who did in fact face Nolan and what that was like throughout his very long and great career. Did you watch him growing up?
Oh,
Or
absolutely.
I mean, what are some memories when you think of Nolan Ryan and people who had to face him?
Well, I'm an old dude, so I go all the way back to his time with the Mets. But I mean, what a legendary figure and what an amazing athlete. You know, if you get into throwing mechanics, you don't throw with your arm, you throw with your butt and you throw with your hamstrings. And this guy was just so strong. And I can't tell you how much I love the concept of Facing Nolan. That to me is just a wonderful title because I can't imagine there would have been anything more frightening than that. You know, you just want to surrender. Just tie a white flag to your bat and go up there and wave it. But you're right. Of all the things that he did in his career, the one that resonates the most, especially with Texans, is him just knocking the head of Robin Ventura. Ventura comes out there and Nolan just gave it to him. So I am a huge fan of Nolan Ryan, and I cannot wait to see that because that is a beautifully titled work, Facing Nolan.
Yeah, they're a great family. I have nothing but great things to say about. I'll have to see if I can find myself or sneak my way into that premiere during South by. I'm also excited that it's part of South by because that's been one of the things that COVID has kind of done away with the last couple of years. Obviously, when it started in 2020, that was one of the first big events, world events even, that had to be shut down. And it's slowly growing back. So the fact that they've got all these movies set to premiere just next month, and Nolan Ryan being one of them, Facing Nolan, that'll be a great one to catch up. And for me, just an educational experience, I think, for me who never got to see him play, but have many a times heard Chris do his Nolan Ryan impression. I don't even know where that comes from. Maybe I'll learn that in the movie itself, and maybe that'll be an opportunity.
Don't be a knucklehead.
There you go, for Chris to work on his impression. Again, that's Facing Nolan. That'll premiere at South by Southwest this year. Now, guys, we were talking college football before the break, and our poll question today asking if you think programs and colleges are using the new NIL rule to their advantage. You made a great point, Paul, of, there's always been the haves and the have-nots, and NIL is certainly separating the two even more because the haves have typically been the ones with the big booster backers who will pay for whatever they want. If it's a new coach, if it's new facilities, they go out, they give their own money, they go get their friends to give their money, and their friends' friends to give their money. And now they can do that essentially with players. It's not necessarily the kosher thing to do, but it does seem to be happening in some ways around the country. And some coaches find that it's not the way to do things, and some coaches don't want to be involved in conversations of that's how they're running their program. One being Jimbo Fisher. And then the other issue that we have talked about yesterday during National Signing Day, as we also get news that Caleb Williams, former Oklahoma quarterback, is now following his former coach, Lincoln Riley, out to USC, is the transfer portal. What do we do about that? Because that in itself is also, we see guys jumping from schools, and part of their decision making might be NIL, right? I mean, Caleb Williams
Mhm.
wrote about that in his essentially goodbye to Oklahoma when he said he was hopping into the transfer portal. Lincoln Riley, of course, another coach who gave a press conference yesterday, and he was asked about the transfer portal and what he thought needed to take place. And I think his answer is a little hypocritical, if you ask me.
Obviously, it's changed, really the way that college football operates. And I think at some point we'll have to put in some guardrails, some ways to kind of ensure when this can happen, when it can't happen, so that players, staffs, all that are a little bit more on the same page. Right now, it's so open-ended that it's, I think, difficult. I think it's difficult for players, difficult for coaches, difficult to build rosters. You try to project to the future. And then I think kind of the ill effects of that when you start looking down at the high school athlete and how many of these scholarships are actually going to players in high school is concerning. And so I think so much has changed, and there's a lot of really good people, smart people in college football that care about this sport. And I think a lot of those people need to get together as we have a chance to assess all that's happened. And I think we can put together a plan that gives everybody the flexibility that they want, but also maintains kind of the integrity of building a roster and being able to use all the different channels to do that in a positive way.
Now, Coach A, that all sounds fine and dandy, right? If you don't know anything about Lincoln Riley, if you don't know that he just jumped ship from one school to another, if you don't know the players that he has recruited in the past or has since recruited since he's been at USC, that sounds great, but we do know all of that about Lincoln Riley. And so to me, some of those comments about creating, it's all about the roster and making sure these high school kids, and it's sounding a little hypocritical. What do you think about Lincoln Riley here and his thoughts on this transfer portal situation?
You mean there's hypocrisy in college
I know.
football?
Crazy.
Part of my reaction is, what's he supposed to say? And I get that. And Shannon, you're right. There is some inherent hypocrisy there. But the teams and the programs that are going to succeed in college football going forward are going to be the ones that micromanage the transfer portal. In the NFL, you have experts who are capologists, and what they do is they manage the salary cap. Well, you're going to have experts that really understand the intricacies of the transfer portal. And just being a traffic cop, keeping track of who's coming and who's going, that's how you're going to build your roster. Now, the one thing that Riley did say that he's right about, and he may be hypocritical about it, but the statement is still correct, this is really going to impact high school recruiting. Because like anything, you want a surer thing.
Yep.
And there are players available in the transfer portal who are proven players, as opposed to even a 5-star high school recruit that you're rolling the dice on, and you don't know if a year from now he's going to join the Hare Krishnas or something like that. So it has to do with finding players who have the greatest chance of succeeding. And when you see a guy who has succeeded, those are the kind of people you're going to want to build your program with. But again, you better have a plan B and a plan C and a plan Z, because all you're going to have to do is look at these guys sideways one time and they're gone. They're out of there for greener pastures.
That's right. And, going out to USC, those guys all expect the Hollywood lifestyle. And if they aren't treated as such, you're right, they may be hopping into that transfer portal to look elsewhere. Now, we haven't talked a lot about Lincoln Riley, you and I, so just off the top, they've suffered the past couple of years, and they've kind of gone through this almost similar to Texas, this coaching carousel, trying to find the right guy. They're still a prominent program by name, but not by the wins and losses record. Do you think that he can make an immediate impact, or is this going to be a slow growth thing for them over there in the Pac-12?
Yeah, I'm going to go for option B, because this is not a recent problem at USC. I mean, this has been going on, as you indicated, for a while, and there is going to have to be a rebuilding job. Now, the good news from his standpoint is that the transfer portal gives you a chance to do a quicker rebuilding job than you would have had previously, but they're going to have to go through some growing pains. And frankly, I have not always been that impressed with Lincoln Riley as a big game game day, in-game coach. So he's going to have to prove some things too.
Yeah, I feel like when he was gifted the Oklahoma Sooners, I mean, that team was ready to go, right? They were, as Charlie Strong would say, the cake was baked. He just had to sit there and put the icing on top, and then, you know, oh, by the way, here's Baker Mayfield, and here's Kyler Murray, and you had Spencer Rattler, who was supposed to be that next guy. Didn't turn out that way.
What in the world happened there?
Yeah.
That's just fascinating to me. What happened with him?
I mean, I don't know that we've ever had something like that. And then to couple it with NIL, right? Because he had multiple cars that he was driving around in Oklahoma. He had all of the deals. He had the logo. He had the merch all going into the season. None of that went away during the season, but I'm sure if you were to look at the charts, they, much like his playing time, went the opposite direction of up, down. It was it'll be interesting to see if he, with this kind of second chance, if he's able to kind of get himself back into the national spotlight, get himself back into the conversation of, you know, maybe the next franchise quarterback of an NFL team. But we'll just have to see how things go next season. This is a chilly Thursday morning on the Chris Duel Show. Coach A once again sitting in for Chris Duel. Dave running things back in the production studio. Thanks so much for listening. 7 o'clock hour next.
Yes, sir. I'm glad you're taking control.
Last time. So what I'm going to have you do is you handle the interviews. Bring first one at
Yes.
And whatever it is. Ask a question. I'll ask them.
Okay.
Can and I'll help you.
Just let me know.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll let Shannon know.
That's all we can do. Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, I completely agree, man. This thing's still flying. I'm with you. Sir. That'd be great. I'm hoping we can get into the florist thing a little bit too, because that's still pending. Okay.
This is the Chris Duel Show.
You know the day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side, yeah.
Now, Chris Duel.
Hour number 2 of the Chris Duel Show on a Thursday. It's a cold one. Many schools around the Austin, San Antonio area closed today, and some even tomorrow, as they're expecting ice to still be on the roads with the chilly temperatures. I am broadcasting from my guest bedroom. Mr. Paul A., Coach Alexander, sitting in for Chris Duel in the iHeart Studios in San Antonio, and Dave Ehler holding it down in the production studio. We are, of course, live on AM 1300 The Zone and Ticket 760. You can also catch the video stream on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And what we love about it is that you can comment along. We see those comments, we read them, and we did have one comment earlier in the show asking about Jim Harbaugh, Coach A. And Jim Harbaugh, as we know, finally got over the hump this year with Michigan, and that was in beating Ohio State. And not only that, but they made it to the college football playoff. They didn't make it much further than that, but they were considered in the top 4 of the NCAA this year. And then he got some interest from some NFL teams. He recently had an interview with the Minnesota Vikings, who are, of course, looking for their next head coach. People are wondering, was he trying to get back to that level alongside his brother? His brother even said, the Vikings would be smart to hire him. But signs right now point to him heading back to Michigan. I don't think the timing is strange at all. Of course, with yesterday being National Signing Day, that probably helped out a little bit. But where do you think is the best fit for Jim Harbaugh? And even if he does officially go back to Michigan, do you see him making the leap back to the NFL at some point in his career?
This whole thing was just so Jim Harbaugh. When this played out yesterday, it's like, yeah, that's who you are. Just full disclosure, I adore his brother, John. I just think John is a stud. Jim is just such a flake. And let's examine what happened yesterday. 3 days ago, he was saying, well, I'm going to be the new head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. This job is mine. He sounded like Charlie Weiss or something. All right, so he goes to the interview, and all of a sudden, it's like they're just not into you. And so his thing, just classic sour grapes. Well, I didn't really want that job. Anyway, I'll be going back to Michigan. I'm making a commitment. Now, the monkeys with the computers tell me that Michigan did okay yesterday on signing day. Yeah, whatever. But this is just so Harbaugh. And I do want to say this. That was by far the best Michigan team he's had, and he had a lot to do with it, and they were tougher, and they did beat up on Ohio State, which is something you have to do to survive there, and then they got Georgia'd. But Harbaugh being Harbaugh is one of those things like death and taxes that you can just count on.
I like him staying at Michigan, especially after finally getting over that hump. I want to see if it's legit, right, and not just a fluke. Chris often says when it comes to jinxes, right, that they are trends. They're not always the way. They're not 100%, but they are trends. So we'll have to see if that was just a hiccup in the road or Michigan actually righting the wrong of so many years, and if they can continue to defeat their rival in Ohio State. Now, yesterday, Coach A, when you were with us, you brought up Jimmy G.
Yeah.
He, of course, has been the quarterback of the 49ers, was previously with the Patriots and under Tom Brady, and then was sent to the 49ers. He's taken them to a Super Bowl before. He almost takes them to another one this season until they meet the Rams and lose in a tight one. And considering all of that, he is still up for debate on whether or not he's the guy for the future for the 49ers. What do you think his outlook is for that team? And then if it's not with them, is there a place that you see fit for Jimmy G to continue his career?
Well, I think the decision has already been made, and he knows it, and he faced it in a very forthright way. He knew that if he didn't take that team to the Super Bowl and probably win it, that he would not be the quarterback of the 49ers next season. And of course, that didn't work out. And you don't really even have to read between the lines. That decision has been made. Matter of fact, the 49ers have given Jimmy G and his agent permission to go seek a trade. So they are going to throw the keys to Trey Lance. That is going to happen. That is the plan there. The thing about Jimmy G that almost makes me kind of sad every now, we're just so binary in this society. You're either great or you stink. And neither of those adjectives describes Jimmy G. He is a good quarterback. At this point, you would not say that he's a great quarterback, but let's not forget this. It was just a few years ago that there were people high up in the Patriot organization who were trying to show Tom Brady the door and turn it over to Jimmy G. I mean, there was a legitimate high-level fight going on in that organization. Belichick really regarded him very, very highly. All right, so he goes to San Francisco. He did take a team to the Super Bowl. I'm not making excuses for anybody because if you're on the field, you're expected to perform. But you try throwing a football when the thumb on your throwing hand cannot grip the thing. And I know he missed wide open receivers. We saw that happen in the Cowboy game. We really saw that happen in the NFC Championship game. But I do know this, in that 49er offense, with that quick play action off the three-step, and it's all slant-oriented, he throws that pretty well. I also know that quarterback is a leadership position, and I don't think people are kidding. Guys say they really enjoy playing with Jimmy G, and they really like him, and they had his back, I mean, unanimously during the playoffs here. So he's out of there. And so we immediately start speculating about landing spots. And the first thing that occurs to me is horseshoes, anyone?
Ooh. But that move would mean Carson Wentz. Whereas
that's yesterday's news. That ship has sailed.
He's done. It's over.
Well, you very seldom hear an NFL general manager just really go off on their quarterback following a failure, and when he failed to get them into the playoffs with what looked like a gimme win, I mean, just, and he just melted down. I think Carson Wentz is going to be history there, and that's an opportunity for somebody. I don't know if it's Aaron Rodgers. I don't know who the opportunity is for. But if you look at that Colt roster, they're ready to go. They're ready to win right now.
Yeah. Oh, I know Texas Longhorn fans would love to see Sam Ehlinger get a shot, and he's obviously on that rookie contract just like Trey Lance. And so if he fits the bill, better than paying for pretty boy Jimmy G. Now, the thing that I find so interesting about the Jimmy G situation, you mentioned the high praise he was getting from the Patriots, right? He was going to be the next man up. They were going to push Tom Brady out. Look what he did while Tom Brady was injured. He had to sit out those 4 games or suspension, and he did well. He got the job done, and that's what you need, because we've seen teams win Super Bowls and go to Super Bowls with average quarterbacks, right? You don't always have to have the MVP of the league to get your team.
Trent Dilfer, Brad Johnson, yeah,
right.
Sure.
You may be a one and doneer when you do it, but you do it, and that's what the franchise wants. He ends up with the 49ers. It looks to be a great fit. Like we said, he took them to a Super Bowl. They were getting into the playoffs pretty consistently. It's so strange now that he almost gets them there again. I mean, I can't even think of another scenario in which this has happened, where you have a guy who is getting you into the playoffs, who's taking you deep in the playoffs, who's taking you to a Super Bowl, who almost takes you to another Super Bowl, and they're like, yeah, we've got to go somewhere else. We've got to go with this unknown, because look at the price tag he has on him versus yours, and we just don't know if you're going to be our future. So we've got to start working towards that.
It is unusual, and it is almost unprecedented. I get it. And as you indicated, this is all about money. This is all about the salary cap. I mean, you can't pay them both a king's ransom. And when you invested that investment and that amount of money and a first-round draft choice in Trey Lance, I mean, that guy has got to be the guy, and sooner rather than later. And that's one of the real sea changes in the NFL. Back in the day, there really was a time where you had unbelievably smart NFL people like, I don't know, Tom Landry, saying that a quarterback is not ready to start until he has been in the NFL for 5 seasons. Ask Craig Morton about that. Now, listen, if you're not the starter game one, your rookie year, you got people looking at you sideways. This is just a different deal. Now, it's evolved this way because quarterbacks are better trained now and they are more ready to play, but it's a different animal.
Oh, yeah. That reminds me of Justin Fields in Chicago, Matt Nagy, the whole preseason. He's not going to play, that he's not going to be. I said, give it to game 4. I believe it took 3 games into the season
Right.
for Justin Fields to start getting to that rotation. And of course, the ongoing story throughout the NFL, Tom Brady's retirement. He's leaving a big hole in the league, and guys have had time now to get with their PR teams and create beautiful messages of goodbyes and videos of their time spent together.
Oh, they hugged it out, didn't they?
Oh,
yesterday? Yeah. That's what yesterday was all about.
I've just got to run this comparison by you, because Antonio Brown, who of course had a very short stint with Tom Brady with the Patriots and then again with the Buccaneers, had a video that had some rap music over it of Tom Brady throw. It was mostly Tom Brady a little bit on the end of a throw that ended up with a catch by Antonio Brown, and then it would finish out the run. And he was he gave him his props. And I was like, okay, this feels more like an Antonio Brown video than a Tom Brady video. But then yesterday, Tom Brady's best on-field buddy, the guy who was with him throughout the Patriots and who came back from retirement to play with him with the Bucs, Mr. Rob Gronkowski, posted a very heartfelt little note here saying, "This football journey with you has been nothing short of special. Thank you for the dedication to the game, putting the team in the best possible position to win every year. All the records that were broken, the Super Bowls, the memories, and your friendship through the last 12 years. If you commit even just 10% of what you committed football, it will do whatever you do next, you will be super duper successful, witness greatness for many years, and got to learn from the best to ever do it. You are a legend and always will be. Thank you. Much love, Gronk." I loved that. And then he had a video too of the two of them throughout their times together, but he had one of those classic talking about my best friend. It was a whole buddy special moment. Gronk's future still seems a little up in the air, but to me, I feel like his retirement is once again coming soon, just because he has been tied to Tom, and Tom is who brought him back into the league. Why is he still hanging around if Tom's gone? What do you think? If you're Gronk, what's your call here?
Foregone conclusion. He is absolutely done and should be. He's doing a very gracious thing right here. He's getting out of the way. He's saying this isn't about me right now. But when you think about it, the only reason he came out of retirement in the first place, the first time, was that he could play with Tom Brady on a team in Tampa Bay that looked to be Super Bowl ready and was. All right, that's all gone now. Brady is through. Tampa Bay is really going to fall back into the pack next year. In fact, look at the NFC South. I think the early favorite might be the Atlanta Falcons, and I'm not kidding. So Gronk's not going to play. And the other thing is, and look, I know he's a goof, but he's a lovable goof, and more than anything else, he is a tough goof. And that guy's body, that poor man's body, has parts falling off. Gronk, shut it down.
Yeah, that it'll be interesting. And I'm excited to talk to James Allen today, because already that class of 2027 Hall of Fame, the guys who are now eligible, Ben Roethlisberger, Tom Brady, and if Gronk retires too, he could be in it as well. We'll look forward to that conversation with James at 8 o'clock. But right now, we're coming up on 7:20. We love to do this throughout the day on the 20s on both stations. It's time for your keyword for your shot to put $1,000 in your hand.
Now your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website, Bills. That's Bills. Enter it on our station website now.
Head over to Ticket 760 or am1300thezone.com, or both if you want to double your chances to win $1,000. This keyword is Bills. Now, Coach A, a bombshell that happened during this week in the NFL. Brian Flores, former coach of the Miami Dolphins, has had some interviews around the league for a new position, is suing the NFL as well as 3 teams in the league for their conduct, for the interviews. There's some Rooney Rule situation going on. And then he appeared on television a couple of times yesterday, along with his lawyer, to discuss things further. We also get the news that Hugh Jackson is claiming that he was paid to lose games by the Browns, so he may be jumping on this too. One of the more interesting things I thought Brian Flores mentioned was, you and I talked about it. This seemed like a career suicide a little bit. And he said, even if I still get hired as a head coach somewhere, I'm not pulling this. This is I'm going to see this through. Your thoughts on where we stand right now with that situation?
Well, first of all, we're all influenced by impressions, and this proves nothing, but Brian Flores appeared pretty darn credible on television yesterday. I mean, he knew exactly what he wanted to say, and he did not back off at all. Now, there are a lot of facts here that are not facts at this point. They're disputed. There's no corroboration. We don't know for sure that he was offered $100,000 for every game he could figure out a way to lose in 2019. We don't know whether John Elway stiffed him and was an hour late and was drunked up. We don't know that. But we do know that that allegation is out there. And I thought it was very telling. Flores' lawyers said yesterday, no, we can corroborate this thing about being compensated for losing. And as you mentioned, now you got Hugh Jackson chiming in. I will tell you this, listening to talk radio, because I'm a talk radio fan, back in 2019, I can remember people talking about the Dolphins tanking. Maybe. So I found that to be very interesting. So there are all these things about the scenario we don't know for sure. But here's what we know for sure. That interview with the Giants was a sham and made a mockery yet again of the Rooney Rule, and something's going to have to be done there. Now, we say that's a certainty because we've got the Belichick texts. And 3 days before Flores even formally interviewed for the Giants job, Belichick's telling him, because he knows that the job belongs to somebody else. I cannot imagine humiliating somebody like that. And Shannon, you were talking about this a minute ago. It really appears that Flores, no matter what happens, is prepared to see this through. And some people are making comparisons with the Kaepernick situation, and I don't think they're totally parallel, but Kaepernick at some point settled. And the NFL went, oh, man. It looks like Flores is seeing this through no matter what. And this is the kind of thing that could end up before a congressional committee. I'm not kidding. And other things aside, hiring practices aside, racism aside, the Rooney Rule aside, if they can prove that an owner was paying a head coach to lose, you may have just lost the farm. Okay, because the one thing the NFL is completely dependent on is the perception of competitive integrity. And we all know this, wink, wink, nod, nod. Part of the financial foundation of the National Football League is the gambling industry.
Yes.
All I can say is whatever cliche you want to use, can of worms, Pandora's box is open, whatever it is, that's over if you do that. So there are some people sweating very profusely in the Jolly Rogers office this morning.
The gambling industry is a huge component that I don't know that people are talking about enough yet. I mean, the NFL year in and year out as of late has been working more and more I mean, I feel like every other commercial was like a Jamie Foxx or the Caesar's Palace, some sort of sports book thing. They even started airing a PSA with a former NFL coach, only bet what you can afford, the rules of gambling, right? I mean, they are on their way. We've got stadiums that are going to start adding sports books throughout the country, both in the NFL and in the NBA and other arenas. I mean, it's becoming more and more a part of sports, especially as more states allow, fantasy sports to happen. And that is huge. And you're going to, forget about this one suit from Brian Flores. You're going to start getting suits from people around the country who have put a lot of money on this game. Probably people who did not follow the rules of only bet what you can afford, right? Probably people who maybe put the house on it. And that is something you don't want to mess with and you don't want to touch. In a league where the pockets are deep, it's been easy to have hush money. You said, a lot of things end up getting settled. And we don't know exactly what goes down with those settlements, but we know that the arguments are no longer being had and that it appears both parties have moved on to their separate ways. Brian Flores saying that that's not something he's willing to do. I believe him. I mean, because he was being offered $100,000 to lose games. I'm not sure what his contract situation was in Miami, but if you were to offer me guaranteed $100,000 and I could hit that up a couple of times, knowing that you're probably going to fire me at the end of the year anyway, or at some point that my life is not long for that organization, why not take that guarantee? Why care? Why just take it, walk away, and be done with it? But he didn't decide to do that. He decided that he was going to win games, and win games he did. 2 back-to-back winning seasons, the first time for that organization since 2003. And what do? They fire him anyway. And he is now looking for a job while dealing with all of this. It is quite the story. I'm sure there'll be much more to come. As we said yesterday, Hugh Jackson jumped on the bandwagon as well because he said he was also offered money to lose games for the Browns. I just go back to that season on Hard Knocks when he was there and was talking to all of his coaches about how he's been in your assistant seat before and look where he is now. So he's there for a reason. And then to think that behind the scenes, he was being offered money to go ahead and tank and have the Browns lose once more for an organization that has known nothing but losing as of late. But they've certainly bounced back a little bit with the help of Baker Mayfield. It's an incredibly interesting story. As I said, there's got to be more to come of this in the next few days. Bombshells will be dropped, I'm sure. This is the Chris Duel Show. Ticket 760 AM 1300 The Zone. Coach A sitting in for Chris as he is still on his forgiveness tour for Kawhi Leonard. He will be back tomorrow. Dave A holding it down, playing the hits. When we come back, we've got sports history, sports birthdays, and a salty shakedown for you, followed by James Allen of the Pro Football Hall of Fame and Andy Everett in the 8 o'clock hour. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be right back with you.
let's get back to the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. Find Chris and Salty on Twitter at Chris Duel and at Shannon B. Sweeney.
Make sure you're also following our station pages on Twitter, Ticket 760 and AM 1300 The Zone. There you will find today's poll question. And Paul, interestingly enough, for our question, do you believe that some schools' football programs are using NIL to buy recruits? We've got 3 options for you: yes, no, and it's complicated. No votes so far for the no category. Mostly yes at 80% and 20% saying it's complicated. We've been talking about that a lot this morning following yesterday's National Signing Day and the comments from both Jimbo Fisher and Lincoln Riley on NIL and transfer portal rules as they currently are. Even though it feels like there's not really a ton of rules. It's kind of a choose your own adventure as we are still very early on in those stages. It is 7:37 on the Chris Duel Show, which means it's now time to take a look back on this day in sports history.
February 3rd. Okay, back in 1876, when I was in the 4th grade, Albert Spalding invested $800 to start a sporting goods company manufacturing the first official baseball, tennis ball, basketball, golf ball, and football. When I was in high school in Lockhart, the official game ball was the Spalding J5V. Had a nice feel. I got real acquainted with that. Then there was the Spalding basketball. And the only familiarity that I have with that is all the Spalding burgers I had to eat because I was kind of vertically challenged sometime. On this date in 1979, what were they thinking? The Minnesota Twins traded Rod Carew. That's Rod Carew, fool! That guy could hit. Traded him to California for 4 players. Love this. Back in 1980, the 30th NBA All-Star Game. It was played in Landover, Maryland. You know, and that was back when the Spurs were in the Eastern Conference, right? The Iceman, George Gervin, the MVP. Love the Iceman. All right, this just gets me going. And yes, I am going to comment on this. In 1993, so we're talking almost 3 decades ago, Cincinnati Reds owner Marge Schott was suspended for 1 year due to horrible racist comments. We were all outraged. And now, almost every day, there are prominent people in this country saying exactly what Marge Schott said, by which we were horrified. And in this case, what we do is we elect them to Congress. That'll depress you. This is cool. We all remember this one. Brady's first Super Bowl back in 2002. That was amazing. You know, against the Rams, Brady brings them back to win, and that's the first of the 7 Super Bowl rings that he won. That was cool. We got birthdays. 1940, Fran Tarkenton, Frantic Fran, the scrambling man. I actually got to cover him toward the end of his career. And I'll tell you this, he's an incredibly bright guy. He's one of those guys that could memorize a phone book back when we had phone books. Fran was a little hard to get along with, but happy birthday, Frantic Fran. Now, here's a guy who's a sweetheart. Born on this date in 1945, Bob Greasy, NFL quarterback for the Miami Dolphins, 1971 Player of the Year. And it's pretty cool when to be Player of the Year, all you had to do was throw 2 passes to Paul Warfield, 1 to Jim Mandich, and 3 to Howard Twilley, and you're the MVP. And, of course, the following year, that was the year the Dolphins ran the table, the perfect season, and Greasy missed the first half of that with a broken leg. And we remember what Earl Morrall did before Greasy got his job back. 1952, happy birthday, one of my favorite baseball players, Fred Lynn. Man, that guy could do it. Boston, California, and Baltimore. He was born in Chicago. And on this date in 1968, the world welcomed Vlade Divac. So in his honor, I'm going to flop out of this chair. Shannon, let's do the salty shakedown.
All right. Well, thank you, sir, for those sports history and sports birthdays. Let's kick things off Super Bowl style with the salty shakedown today. We are 10 days out. We can officially start a countdown to the Super Bowl and unfortunately what ends the NFL season. But things are heating up every day. We get little bits and pieces of information of what we can look forward to. And yesterday was jersey reveal day. Paul, like Chris, who hates the Dallas Cowboys blue jerseys. He hates the blue jersey jinx. He believes in it. He doesn't want to wear one. He doesn't want to see other people wearing one. He believes in that jinx to the core. Well, just like that, there are a lot of people that are on the white jersey trend when it comes to Super Bowls, because if you look at the trend of Super Bowl winners, it's usually the team in the white jersey. It has been of late. I do believe the Bucks last year were wearing their white jerseys when they won the Super Bowl with Tom Brady and with Rob Gronkowski. As I saw the pictures on Rob's Twitter this morning, looking at his thank you to Mr. Tom Brady. And so yesterday, some people are already claiming that it's the Rams Super Bowl to win just because they are going with actually an alternate uniform, which rarely happens in the Super Bowl, but their usual away jersey is actually what they consider a bone gray. But they're going to be wearing a white top with their yellow pants for the Super Bowl. So you go ahead, you put them in white. And then the Bengals did a fun reveal. As we know, this year, their jerseys were brand new. It was a new year for jerseys for them. Personally, as someone who's not already a fan of the Bengals, I couldn't tell much of a difference, but they're different enough to where they could take the old ones out of the store and make everyone buy new ones. But they were leaked, like a lot of things. They were leaked about a month early before the official reveal, and that leak was a simple picture of a jersey hanging on a hanger. It was just a plastic hanger. It was on an empty wall. The jersey was not ironed. It was just kind of there, and it said, here it is, the new Bengals jersey. And so yesterday, in their Super Bowl jersey reveal, they had on a hanger the jersey, but along with the Super Bowl patch, which is pretty cool, quite the upgrade, and some unironed white pants, and then a pair of socks. And of course, they used Joe Burrow's jersey number 9, and they said, here it is. Here's our Super Bowl jersey. So I like that they had some fun with themselves, the fact that their jersey got leaked, but they were the ones to officially leak their jersey for the Super Bowl, and it has that upgraded Super Bowl patch on it. Now, do you believe in the jersey curse, sir? And if you do you follow the trend and go ahead and take the Rams just because they've got that white jersey for the Super Bowl versus the Bengals in black?
Oh, I believe in the curse because the curse is real. And I go back. I mean, I guess it starts officially with Super Bowl V when the Cowboys, playing at the Orange Bowl in Miami, somehow found a way to give that game away to the Colts, and they were wearing the blue jerseys. But in my mind, it goes back even further than that. Okay, 1968, I am such a Cowboy fan. I'm 14 years old. I love everything. I love life. I love my Cowboys, and they had sailed through the regular season at 12-2, and they're playing a first-round playoff game against the Browns in Cleveland, and it's a Browns team that they have beaten to death earlier in the season. And that was the game where they just couldn't get it going, and proved to be Don Meredith's final game. I mean, he got benched in the fourth quarter in favor of Craig Morton. Famously, didn't even fly home with the team. He grabbed Pete Gent. They went to New York and got tanked for 3 days. And then Meredith later that year decided to retire. That they were wearing the blue jerseys. Now, here's the thing. I go back and I see the pictures of the Cowboys in those original blue jerseys. And the one thing you got to say is they were beautiful. I mean, they were absolutely gorgeous. That was a great shade of blue, the design of the jerseys, the numeral font, everything. And now you see these dingy, just washed out kind of sort of blue jerseys with the non-attached borders. And it looks like they bought them at Target or got them in a box of Breeze or something like that. So I don't know which I'm more offended by. The fact they can't play in the blue jerseys, or the fact that the blue jerseys are coyote ugly.
They're just ugly. Why wear them if they're ugly? Why have them if they're ugly? And interesting. This year, the Cowboys did kind of a throwback and an homage with the red stripe. Of course, they ended up losing the game with the red stripe on the helmet. People thought it looked cool, but now they're like, wait a minute, we need to take that back off, because that might it wasn't why they lost the game, but it might be. And if we can change that, why not do it to go along with the blue jersey jinx?
You asked me about the Bengals, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just kind of going back in my memory banks. This will be their third Super Bowl appearance. And the first two were against the 49ers. And we kind of, sort of came close to having another Bengals 49ers Super Bowl. All right, well, the first time the Bengals lost to them, which was in Super Bowl 16, the Bengals were wearing black. Then when they lost to the 49ers again later in the John Taylor game, Jerry Rice had something to do with it too. The Bengals were wearing white in that one. So they've already lost in their dark jerseys and their white jerseys. So we'll see how this plays out. I do think the Rams are outsmarting themselves, however. You know, they've been on a little roll here. They've been in a groove here. I'm not sure messing with that's a good thing.
All right. Well, again, 10 days out now from the Super Bowl. All right. Yesterday, National Signing Day. Although most kids signed on early signing day, there still were some names that dropped and committed to their schools. One of which was three-star tight end. Excuse me, I lost his name. I will find it for you. But this three-star tight end made headlines a couple weeks ago, or actually last week, when he danced in a video with Brian Kelly. He was part of the Brian Kelly movement that is shaking his booty for the camera with recruits. They get them dressed up in the LSU uniforms, and they stand on a platform that has a 360 camera that rotates around. And they take videos and pictures. And Brian Kelly, for whatever reason, feels the need to be in it. Danny Lewis is that tight end's name, who was the recruit in the most recent viral video. There was one that came out initially shortly after he was hired by LSU, where he was with a recruit. And then I guess it just became a thing that Brian Kelly dancing awkwardly was enough to get the TikTok views, enough to get the social media views. But the views aren't everything when it comes to college football, apparently, because that recruit, three-star tight end, Mr. Danny Lewis, going to Alabama, sir. The dancing wasn't enough. I think it's time for Brian Kelly to put the dancing shoes away and go back to maybe some old school recruiting tactics, because it just didn't work for this guy. That video may have blown up, and that video may be all at the end of the day what that tight end Danny Lewis is known for. Who knows what he'll do at Alabama? Who knows?
Does the term fish out of water come to mind with respect to Brian Kelly, or in this case, I guess, crawfish out of water, trying to be a Cajun and affecting this Cajun accent?
Accent now.
This isn't going to work out.
No? You're not feeling it?
Nope.
I mean, not if he's losing three-star recruits to Alabama. Come on.
Well, a lot of people have lost that war. I will say that.
Sure. But I didn't see any dancing videos of Mr. Lewis coming out of Alabama. So maybe try something else. And again, Chris and I had this conversation. If I'm a recruit and I'm putting on the uniform and I'm getting to take these pictures and videos to use for my social media, well, I don't want you in here, Brian Kelly. Get out of here. You look like my dad. Stop. It's not cool, bro. Think of something else. Maybe do the tactic that some schools are denying that they're doing, like throwing money at players to get them to go there. Maybe that's what happened. Maybe Alabama just threw a little bit more to the three stars way, and all LSU could do was offer a dancing video with head coach Brian Kelly. All right, yesterday was 2/2/22, which means we finally got the new official name of the Washington, formerly Redskins, formerly football team, and now Commanders. A lot of people saw this one coming, but there were a couple of names that were going around ahead of time. And in November, star for that team, Mr. Chase Young, the defensive end, he was on a show in which they were going through the list of names, and he was actually asked about Commanders, and this was his answer.
What about Commanders?
Sounds like a movie.
Yeah.
F. The star, I'd argue, franchise player currently with the Washington team, the guy who so many people are buying his jerseys, that's the one you're going to go for when you get the new one, gave it an F back in November. Yesterday, after the announcement, he did post something to his Instagram. It's him in the new uniform, and he just used some ice emojis, but that piece of audio is now coming back to not only bite him, but the Washington Commanders social media was not kind to the team. Some of my favorite remarks from yesterday. Washington Commanders is like when the movie can't get the rights to use an actual team. So something quick out there and hope it just doesn't cause too much confusion. Some other ones said that's like the team in Madden that they just make up when they have to relocate. And then the Washington Commanders sounds like a made-up football team in a movie starring The Rock. Lots of movie and throwback and relocation jokes there, but it's not going over well. I'm not sure what sales are looking like. I guess it's fine. I mean, it's what we're living with right now. But most people not really on board quite yet. But I've got to imagine if you're a Washington fan, you like it better than the Washington football team, although I have seen some arguments that they should have just kept it. They should have just kept the Washington football team. At this point, now that we know that they are the Commanders, would you rather them be the Commanders or would you have rather them stay the Washington football team?
I'm in the minority, but I kind of, sort of got Washington football team. And if you find yourself in that situation, and it was a horrible situation, an uncomfortable situation to be in, that might have been the most artistic way to play your way out of it. On the other hand, I understand that this is all about ultimately selling merchandise, and you're not going to be able to sell Washington football team merchandise indefinitely. So you had to come up with a name. But you could have come up with better unis. I asked my wife yesterday afternoon after they did the reveal on the new uniforms, and all I can say is she was less than impressed. And I think she's right.
Less than impressed. Yeah, I kind of like them for their basicness, and also at the same time, I'm like, you're starting new, you're starting fresh, you have a chance to really make something pop, something to catch your eye. Something that will be remembered. And that's what we're going with. I'm not so sure about that choice.
But of course, they had to have the obligatory black alt uniforms, right? Because nothing says the history of Washington NFL football like the color black. It's like we see in college football every week.
I was going to say.
Every time I think of TCU, boy, the first thing I think about is black uniforms.
Yeah, I was gonna say the black uniforms they do, and their uniforms in general. They remind me of a college football team. Now, sir, you are in San Antonio, and I know a lot of San Antonio fans are reminiscent on their Commanders football team that unfortunately disbanded along with the league.
And that was a good-looking uni, was it not? Those were sharp threads.
Do you feel any type of way because of that situation towards the Commanders and their new name?
I don't conflate the two. And I just think the experience we had here was so sad for everybody because it was going great, which is no surprise. San Antonio makes things like that work. And the team was good. The product on the field was good. It was advanced football. There were large crowds. Everybody was having a good time. And then the world stopped turning and we had to pull the plug. And I just think that's sad. And kind of tangentially, how we didn't end up with a franchise in the revitalized USFL is beyond me because we handled that USFL experience pretty well also. I can remember some fun times out at the Rock Pile.
Well, maybe if you still have some leftover San Antonio Commanders gear, you can fool some Washington teams fans and sell that gear to them, make a pretty penny off of it. Coming up next, we've got James Allen from the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We'll talk Tom Brady's retirement, that potential Hall of Fame class for 2027, which could be extra special. And we'll get his thoughts on the new Washington football team name as they are now officially the Commanders. And Andy Everett supposedly joining us at 8:35. I saw his flight to join UTSA basketball was actually canceled, so he's making the drive right now to Houston. We'll see if we can catch him on the road. We are the Chris Duel Show. It is the 8 o'clock hour coming up next. Thanks so much for listening.
Came with the army, yeah. The people around me still the same. We just wanna party, yeah. We ride it, you won't never change. Count up the bands, sticking up.
what'll happen here is after the open,
Yeah.
I'll just have you start the show.
Okay, sure.
And go to James' first question. Once Shannon lets me know if she can hear him or not, I'll let you know.
We'll go from there.
Yeah.
Okay. And if it turns out that she can't, just confirm that with me real quick.
I'll let you know.
Okay.
Yes, she can. No, she
Sure.
can't.
Beautiful.
So yeah, I'll let you know.
Okay. Lovely. I'm about to say I haven't even felt any real turbulence, so it's been good. Couldn't hurt.
This is the Chris Duel Show.
You know the day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side, yeah.
Now, Chris Duel.
Nah, you're going to be disappointed. Everybody wants to be Chris Duel. I want to be Chris Duel, and I'm honored to be filling in for Chris Duel, as I did yesterday. Very appreciative of that opportunity. Always an absolute pleasure to work with the wonderful Shannon Salty Sweeney. We're in two different places. Shannon is kind of snowed in or iced in at her place in Austin. I was able to make it into the palatial iHeart studio this morning in San Antonio. Just glanced out the window because that's what good meteorologists do. You look out the window, and right now here, the precip is still liquid, for which I am very, very grateful. Okay, we all do this. It's like profession and job and occupation envy. And what I'm talking about is all athletes want to be entertainers, and all entertainers want to be athletes. And whatever we do for a living, we're always thinking, man, that'd be my dream job. Now, look, nobody on earth is more grateful than I am. I mean, I have been blessed mostly through dumb luck with a lot of wonderful experiences of doing what I do and have done for a living for the last 4 decades. But like anybody else, I speculate about what my dream job would be. And for many years, I thought it would be to be a talent scout for Nair commercials. But then I started thinking about it. And I think the person that has the ultimate dream job is the gentleman that we welcome to the show right now. This is amazing. Mr. James Allen, who is on the board and selection committee for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Mr. Allen, welcome. We are honored. How are you?
Great to hear from you, Coach, the pride of Lockhart. Shout out to Shannon, Salty Sweeney, and my man David OEHLER. No, it's interesting. We met a long time ago when you were at KSAT. Besides, you're still extremely good looking even now. I wanted to be your dream job. So I guess it's your introduction that's true. I think we all want to be with something else. So it's great to talk to you, Coach.
It's wonderful to speak with you, and it must be pretty good being you. I can imagine, or maybe I can't imagine, how incredibly busy you are right now. Your job entails a wonderful, wonderful opportunity, but there is a really heavy responsibility there too, because there's a lot at stake here. There are a lot of emotions on the line. There are a lot of things to consider. Tell me what you're doing right now.
Well, we're having meetings. What we're doing, Coach, in the past, as you know, David Baker, our former president and CEO, 6'8", 400 pounds, big, huge guy, would knock on the door. And of course, everybody saw the Jimmy Johnson and Coach Cutler things on live TV. And what we decided to do this year, David we're still doing stuff with the Hall, is we're going to have a Hall of Famer, current Hall of Famer, knock on to go visit them that had some relationship with them somehow to surprise them. So it's a new thing we're doing. We're doing a lot of coordinations today and getting down to the final. We've already we voted the other day and got our final list put together. And so right now, just getting everything ready for Super Bowl, and a lot of the logistics are in play thanks to Commissioner Goodell and who's on our board, and just working through a lot of the little tiny stuff on the media and packets, as you know, and all the stuff announcing and getting all the players' bios and families and getting as much as you can to maximize this, very rare, there's only 320 something odd people in the Hall of Fame. And if you take out the contributors and all the other people, it's, probably 280 football players ever in 100 something years. So it's stuff like that, Coach, just getting down to the nitty gritty to, like you said, this big responsibility to change a lot of people's lives.
The announcement is always such a wonderful part of Super Bowl weekend. And I'm looking at the list of finalists this year, and every single one of those human beings belongs in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and hopefully they'll all get there eventually. But timing matters to a lot. And again, you look at this, and to quote the Eagles, unfortunately, they're going to be a heartache tonight. That's got to be tough.
It is tough. And, one of Lombardi's linemen, Mr. Kramer, went in about, I lose track, 4 years ago, with Lewis and them. And he was 70, late 70s years old. And he's very candid, very sweet guy. And he just said, listen, I wanted to be there for a long time, but when you're here, it's kind of like Drew Pearson. We started the senior thing so we could get Kenny Stabler in, because people forget about these guys. And talking to Drew out there, and of course I've been on your show. He's done a lot of shows. It's to get in the door. There's too much make, Coach, about I want to be in the first round and everything else. I can assure you, when they get in and they show up to the Ray Nitschke luncheon, which I can't go to, the commissioner can't do anything else. It's just those guys. It's really it changes their lives, and the wait is finally over.
James, you mentioned the new way of knocking on the door now that David Baker has stepped aside. And I love the idea of getting a Hall of Famer who has a connection with the soon-to-be Hall of Famer that's going to be receiving that knock. But that adds a lot of extra moving pieces to an already incredibly tight-lipped puzzle. How do you handle making sure that these guys who have that connection, who are going to have to keep this secret for a number of days, keep quiet and things don't get leaked on social media or anywhere else early? I remember last year, the Pro Football Hall of Fame Instagram, you called me out on it because I saw that they had accidentally a couple minutes early released Drew Pearson's name via Instagram before it was announced on the live broadcast for that Hall of Fame night where all of the names were ended up being announced. What's the speech you have to give these current Hall of Famers to say, hey, you know the drill, don't open your mouth?
Yeah, and it's tough, right? Because as Coach pointed out, I mean, there's, you know, hundreds of years of football. There's only a couple hundred of these people, and it's a big deal. I mean, I'm not gonna, you know, some of these guys are saying, you know, my Super Bowl ring, I'd trade in for a gold jacket. I mean, it's a really big deal. So it's hard, especially it's really hard for the wives and / girlfriends and kids, to be candid. The guys are like, you know, I've been waiting, you know, and it's seriously hard, but the speech you give them is, listen, you want to be upfront with your team. Deacon Jones helped solidify that long time ago with the speech about this is a team you can never get traded, you can never get cut, blah, blah, blah. It goes on. This is a team for life. And that's prolific in the discussion with them. Say this, you got to stay in your huddle before they break so you don't outshine anybody else in your class. And it's kind of like the first, you know, I heard David Baker say it's like the first kid that finds out that Santa Claus may or may not be real. I don't want to put that on the radio, but you know, it's always that first kid that kind of, you know, has this contrarian views. So you kind of give them that thing in a very positive light. And as you pointed out, and I kind of called you on it last year, but Drew was a special case. David Baker even called Drew when he didn't make it that one year and just said, hey, just hang in there. So, yeah, it's tough. I don't know if it's going to happen. You know, a lot of stuff's happening today with those people, and it's tough to hide it, even with private planes and everything else. But we'll see if we can make it to Super Bowl without anybody finding out.
Our guest, and we're enjoying this so much, is James Allen from the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He's got that awesome responsibility as part of the selection committee. Okay, James and Shannon, can we all agree that the biggest pain in the rear position group in football are wide receivers? Okay, because we are all jackass divas, every single one of us, even the well-behaved ones. And that's what's creating this logjam, because this isn't like baseball. Baseball getting to the Hall of Fame, it's usually all about numbers. Well, because of the way the game has evolved and the passing numbers have been inflated, now you've got all these guys with these astronomical numbers, and you're asked to sort that out and really kind of determine how historically important these guys are. That's got to be the one, James, of all the position groups out there that makes you just want to do a facepalm.
You know, it's a great point, Coach. And I don't disagree with you. Also, the linemen are pretty tough, too, especially on the offensive side is also right behind that. But the receivers, you bring up a great point, and I think you're inferring because Drew Pearson, you know, really wasn't a passing league. He had a guy, named Len Swan, whose stats are really kind of tit for tat, but because of certain things and the catch, the Super Bowl. But until Bill Walsh came along, 49ers, and we started opening these things up. And you're right, the stats are crazy. And, you know, and so, you know, it's tough. The receivers is really, 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 really hard, like you said, Coach. And even the linemen are tough, especially on the offensive side. It's been really tough as well.
James, we're now 10 days out from the Super Bowl, and since we've last spoken, we now know who will be heading there to play the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Los Angeles Rams. It'll be yet a second year for the second time ever in Super Bowl history that the team who plays in that normal stadium that is the host site of the Super Bowl will play there once again. Your initial thoughts on these two particular teams heading to that game, and as a guy who's going to that game, how much do they excite you?
You know, I like the pageantry of all of it, you know, and, you know, some people are complaining that it's a home team and it's an advantage, and it is. The guys don't have to travel, they're watching their girlfriends, but hey, that's the luck of the draw. We got Arizona, next year, and then Raiders for Vegas after that. You can't control that with all the playing. However, this one has a lot of pageantry to it on both sides of the ball. Of course, Joe Burrows could be and Coach probably knows this better than I do, but I think the only person who's ever taken a team that far down in a couple of years to Super Bowl win was I think Montana and infamously Joe Namath. There's a lot. That's huge. I mean, that puts you in extremely rare, you know, to the last place Bengals a couple of years ago. On the Rams side of the ball, of course, they went all in on their quarterback, the owner, Kroenke, and Matt Stafford. You know, in the Ford family, no disrespect, but you know how they treated Barry and Metron, and you know, and Matt's just kept his mouth closed and just toughed it out. And And, you know, you kind of like to see a guy like that win it. So, and of course, there's Eric Weddle, who came back at 37 to help on the defensive side. And, you know, I could go on and pontificate. I'm not as good as Paul. I know the stats like that, but I'm really looking forward to the game because there's great stories on both sides. And that's what I think as a member of the Hall of Fame and working with the commissioner, that's really what you want, because it's all really about the fans and entertainment value. At least it's supposed to be, you know, notwithstanding all the money below the surface.
James, the system there and the way you handle that and the way the entire Pro Football Hall of Fame is conducted, for those of us who truly love the sport, we're very, very appreciative for the work you do. Now, as to the process, I've only seen it in person, and it was just a little snippet one time. This was Super Bowl 38. That was the Super Bowl between the Patriots and the Carolina Panthers in Houston. And I was covering the game, but I was also looking to have a good time in the weekend. You know, it's a Super Bowl, right? So somehow I got this invitation to this Super Bowl party at the aquarium in Houston. And it's a nice afternoon on a Saturday, so we're all out on the patio. And I just happened to be standing about 8 feet away from Harry Carson. And I was staring at him when he found out that he had not been elected that year. And Harry Carson, I mean, that's about as much of a grown man as you're ever going to encounter in your life. I mean, a man with such dignity, such a great player, such a great dude. I saw Harry Carson come undone crying on that patio, and it ripped my guts out. James, what do you think about stuff like that?
I could spend an hour being a part of that. We always have a party for the people that are the finalists, and then they find out this year, because of COVID, we're not doing it the last couple of years, but you bring on the final 15, coach, and you know, I remember speak to Harry, I without dropping it, Harry and I spent one-on-one in Indianapolis Super Bowl with him and his wife, and he talked about that. And one of the things you said that I'll just brag about Harry Carson, big Twitter buddy Jim McMahon, then we're suing about concussions. And I said, you know, and you know, Harry's he has that scowl still on his face, but he's a very calm guy. And so, you know, this guy can kill me. And I just said, Harry, I mean, I have to ask you, you know, why you're not in that. He said, and I thought this was a very dignified answer. He said, James, the concussions are real. They've known about it. Those are my NFL brothers. I have no problem with it. He said, but when you sign the first contract, when you come into college, you think you know concussions, you have no idea. You don't know what the pain, you don't. But if you sign that contract the second time, that's on you. And he said, that's on me. And by the way, he said right there, and he actually wrote a little semi-book, kind of a regional book up in New York. And he told me the end of the story there. And he said, you know, I would trade my Super Bowl ring, even my gold jacket, which means more to me than anything else, if I knew what I knew then, and I may not have played. But I did sign the second contract, and I own my responsibility. And I thought that was a very cerebral and dignified thing. So I'm a big fan of that. I can tell you real quick about Morton Anderson. At the time, the leading scorer in history. He was at Houston Super Bowl a couple of years ago, and we're up in the private penthouse thing, and I have affiliation with the Saints, and we're just talking, and he just started kind of almost crying. He said, I tried so hard. I did this all my life. And you remember he was out for a while, and he was kicking the park until the Falcons brought him back in. And David Baker took him outside and hugged him and said, brother, you're in this final 15. Just hang in there. And I could go on and on about people like that. These are macho guys, competitive is all get out, and they're literally like little kids. And it's very moving, like you said, Coach.
We're going to take a quick pause in the action for your 8 o'clock keyword. Your shot at $1,000 right now.
Now your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Work. That's work. Enter it on our station website now.
Get $1,000 in your hand by taking that keyword work over to ticket760.com and am1300thezone.com if you want to double your chances there to win $1,000. James, I'm going to keep it with a little bit of a theme here, and the ability for people around the league to keep their mouth shut, to keep things a secret. Yesterday, the announcement was made official that the Washington football team would become the Washington Commanders. We've kind of known that that would be the name for weeks now, but it is now official. There's been mixed reviews throughout the league, from players, from fans. What are your thoughts on the new team name? And has your good buddy Jerry Jones, who will face the Commanders twice a year in that NFC East division, has he said anything, or do you know what his reaction is to the new rival's name?
I haven't talked to Jerry in a couple of weeks, and I won't see him, and I won't be able to talk to him to the Super Bowl. So I don't have any information there. And on that, I'll leave it with this. And Coach, is not just, no offense to you, Shannon, he's just been around this stuff a long time, and he knows about names and everything else. We could talk about the Ravens when they named it that, and Edgar Allan Poe's and Baltimore. I mean, big up for the Pelicans. The late Mr. Tom Benson and his current wife, Gail. They were talking about that. I remember talking to a couple Dolphins said that their uniform was kind of too, it was very Miami, but it's hard to be very intimidating when you're facing the Raiders. And so this stuff happens. It's go on. It's all about money. I like the Washington football team name. Kind of cool. Kind of like Chris Berman kind of said, the New York Football Giants and the Raiders. I mean, I like that. It has a ring to it, but it doesn't sell merchandise. Of course, Dan and Jerry are pretty much the same. Dan finally hired a GM finally after making Martin Mayhew a couple years ago after making some colossal things. Jerry is refusing that. But as you know, it took all big sponsors finally to make him change his mind. But he needs to make money. And obviously a lot of teams up there are vying to move his team. So he wanted to create more dollars. And that's all this is about. The name, as far as I'm concerned, I like the Washington Football Club. I don't have a problem with the Commanders, but I like kind of like the world football or soccer people do, and the Barcelona Football Club. I kind of like that.
James, this has just been delightful. I have so much enjoyed our previous conversations, this one, and I can't wait for the next one. And again, thank you so much for joining us. God love you for the work you do. It's such a huge part of Super Bowl weekend, and anything that we can do to showcase the greatness of the great game, it just doesn't get any better than that. So yes, I am still professionally jealous of you.
Well, I'm jealous of you. I wish I looked that good and had your thing so we could just be mutual admiration. In closing, Lockhart, name something after Coach Paul. Shannon, hook 'em horn, keep the post up. And in closing, I want to give a shout out to James Sotak, Dunwell Services. My mom and dad live on the place in Bulverde. Of course, they're listening. And James Sotak knew this freeze was coming. Service their wells. It doesn't service their wells. Put their well in years ago. Ran out there and wrapped them stuff out. So that's a Hall of Fame cool thing. Thank you guys for this mantra. This venue to promote the Pro Football Hall of Fame and sports in a positive light. And I really appreciate y'all's time.
Thank you very much. Shannon, how cool was that?
He's the best. How could he not be? He has a taco named after him. That's the ultimate crowning achievement, if you ask me. I know we talked a lot about that gold jacket thing, but a taco? Come on. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, in our culture, that's just about the pinnacle of being honored there. You really get into the Hall of Fame thing and the election every year? Because I'll tell you straight up, I do.
I'm starting to get more into it, right? Because of just my age. I think, now that the Tom Brady's, right, in that discussion, and seeing Peyton Manning go in last year, right? I watched Peyton play. There's that 5-year rule, right, where you've got to be at least 5 years removed from your playing days before you can get voted in. So it's just now kind of starting to be, okay, I recognize these guys. I remember what they did on the field. I remember what they've done for the game and why they're deserving of that position in the Hall of Fame. So I'm starting to get more and more into it. Obviously, the connection with James is great and helps as well. We love talking to him each and every week, and he is going to the Super Bowl. So I'll be curious when we talk to him next week if he's going to already be there in LA but for sure, get his reaction after the game will be just as exciting. When we come back, we hope to have Mr. Andy Everett. I think he's on the road to Houston, which sounds crazy, having looked outside my guest bedroom window here with all of the white stuff that is on the ground and falling from the sky. Not exactly sure what it is, but it's weird. It has me at home today. You're listening to the Chris Duel Show with Coach A. Paul Alexander sitting in, Dave OEHLER holding things down back in the production studio, and myself, Shannon Salty Sweeney. We will return in a few.
You hit it with. Sounds good. Thanks.
Cause I got a really big team, and they need some really big rings. They need some really nice things. Better be coming with no strings.
Back to the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney.
I know our man Andy Everett is used to some ABBA, but I like that Drake intro for him, as he is the voice of the UTSA Roadrunners, and that school and their programs are doing really big things. Coming off National Signing Day yesterday, Andy Everett was there for all of it. So we'll start there with him. But Andy, you are on the road right now. Is that correct?
Yeah, the basketball team left yesterday for Rice. I was asked to stay back to host our signing day event with boosters and some of the donors out at the Well in San Antonio, and we had a good time out there. And the plan was to fly to Houston this morning and meet the team and continue the road trip, which goes to North Texas on Saturday and Middle Tennessee on Monday. But Mother Nature decided that it was too dangerous to fly, so San Antonio canceled pretty much every flight out of there today. And so I'm almost to Luling on I-10, heading to Houston so we can broadcast the basketball game tonight.
Well, safe travels. I mean, I'm less worried about you. I'm sure you are an excellent and very safe and defensive driver, but there are plenty of people in this world who are not so much. So be on the lookout for them. Now tell us about this booster event last night, of course, on the official National Signing Day. I know you're a huge supporter of just keeping the one an original National Signing Day rather than have that early signing day period.
Yeah, I addressed that last night in front of the group with Jeff, and he said from there's kind of two edges to the sword. The one is that you're able to get players signed up early, and they don't have that to worry about it over Christmas break, but you're still recruiting them every single day. The bad part about it is, and Jeff mentioned this last night, that people at Texas Tech and TCU wanted him, if he was going to take their job, to quit in October and not even finish the last 4 games of the season, so that he could get ready for the December signing period and be the kind of the coach in waiting. And that's what's happening at every school. They don't want you to finish your season because that year of recruiting is so vital to get back on track. And that's the part I don't like, is that in years past, when signing date was in February, a coach would finish his season, sometimes even coach his team in the bowl game or a national championship game if he was a coordinator, before he took the next job. And now they want you to leave November 1st. And that's where I think it's very difficult. Plus, if you are one of the teams that's playing in a conference championship game that first weekend in December, you have it's the other 100 schools that are recruiting against you while you're not able to recruit because you're too busy getting ready for your championship game and eventually your bowl game. So I'm a proponent of going back to February only. I thought that was kind of a national holiday, if you will, for college recruiting. I think the December one is too rushed.
Andy, it's Paul. It's always a pleasure to speak with you, and just be careful. I know you're on I-10 heading east, and you're near Luling, so I'll have to ask you if you've done the Buc-ee's thing yet, because that's very important.
I'm not quite there yet, but it's in my radar.
Hey, the other thing, since you're in Luling and you are such a golf aficionado, and I have learned so much from you, have you ever played Luling Municipal? Because that's where I played as a teenager when I was a kid.
I have never played there. I didn't even know there was a Luling Municipal, to be honest with you.
It's right there next to the river. It's great. And all you need to know about that course is just don't ever hit it left. You can block it right as far as you want to. You got unlimited room there. But if you hit it left, it flies over the barbed wire fence and you're on somebody's front porch and the chickens are going to eat your golf ball.
Yeah. Well, I can hit pretty much anything left, but I can also hit it right. So I'll have to check that out sometime.
You'd be in good shape. Okay, so we're talking about, the alternate signing dates, and I'm kind of a traditionalist too, but I'm wondering, is there a danger that this is going to create some kind of social and cultural divide? Like nobody wanted you. You had to wait till February.
Well, I think a lot of players want to wait till February because they haven't made up their mind. And here's the other thing, too. It used to be once you made up your mind and signed your letter, if you decided to go someplace else, you had to sit out a year.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're as a coach, you're recruiting your players every single day because if you discipline them the wrong way, they're going to think about transferring. If you don't play them because they're not very good and they think they're ready to go to the NFL, they're going to transfer. If they get beat out by somebody and they think they're better than that guy when they're clearly not, they're going to leave. And so you're constantly trying to recruit 185 guys that are on scholarship and all your walk-ons as well so you can keep your roster together. And my biggest fear going forward, I'm all for players getting what players can get. But I think the biggest challenge for the non-Power 5 schools going forward is you are a farm system for the bigger schools every day. UTSA signed a player, the best recruit in the history of their program, a cornerback by the name of Zay Frazier yesterday. He's going to probably start right away or play a lot next fall. But he went to Kentucky. He decided he didn't like it there on day one, called the coaches and said, hey, I hate it here. I made a mistake. Can you get me out of this? I want to come to UTSA. And they worked it out to where he could. But in years past, that probably wouldn't have been a deal. Now UTSA's got to recruit him every single day because what if he has 10 interceptions next year? And especially if he has them against Texas or has one against Houston or Army in those first three games, then all of a sudden those schools are going to go, hey, that guy's pretty good. We should have him. Why don't you come play at the bigger school where you get more exposure? So that's always going to be the case with where we're at right now with the landscape of football and pretty much any sport.
Andy, when it comes to signing days, everyone loves the grades. Everyone loves the star counts. Yesterday, UTSA added some names to their roster. How are you grading them after yesterday's signing day?
Well, Jeff said it's the best recruiting class in UTSA's history. It's got more players that are 3 and 4 stars than I guess than they've ever had before. And 24/7 Sports said that if they were in the American Conference right now, it would be number 4 in the American. And they're not even in the American. They're rating them against Conference USA schools. So I suppose they're 1 or 2 there. So that's kind of where they're at. Jeff also mentioned yesterday that they're starting to get attraction from better players, that UTSA is on a different tier than they were a year ago or 2 years ago or certainly 5 or 7 years ago. So that all bodes well. And I really think that UTSA is going to be great at whatever level they're at for a long time, especially if Jeff Traylor is the coach, because every Texas high school coach in the state knows him and more importantly, trusts him and tells their players that they can trust him. So I think we're going to be in for some great times. Next year, the season begins home with Houston, at Army, and at Texas. So that's a really tough gauntlet to start off the season with. And I think they're going to win some of those games. Which ones, I don't know. But there's also the possibility you could go 0-3 and still have a great year because those schools are really good and will probably all be, well, certainly Houston will be in the top 25. And I would imagine at some point Texas and Army will be knocking on the door.
Andy, I am such a fan of Coach Traylor. He amazes me. He often seems to be playing chess when everybody else is playing checkers. And he has so many personal and organizational qualities that I admire. What's the one thing about him that has impressed you the most?
Well, I think this is it. He says, I am never going to lie to my players. I'm never going to tell them something that's not accurate. And he said before the Memphis game last year, this team is faster than you are. And a lot of the players took that personal, especially a guy like Tariq Woolen, who ran 22 miles an hour last spring in spring ball. He goes, they're not faster than me, coach. And he said, well, they're all pretty much your speed. And so he's very, very genuine with players. And he understands them. He understands what makes them go. And you talk about players, coaches, he's one of them. And I think that he's just got this quality about him that the players truly trust what he says. And they understand if they're not playing, for the most part, it's not because he's got something against them. It's because somebody else is in front of him that's better. And then he challenges them to get better. There's a couple of players on the team that he's referred to as Mr. Potential. You got potential, but that means you're not what you should be yet. And do you want to live up to your potential, or do you want to stay where you're at? And so I think he really challenges them to be competitive. And I think he's got, I think every player on this team genuinely trusts him. And here's an example. Jared Sackett was a kicker on this team in the 2018 season. And he decided to leave and go to Arkansas, and then again transferred to South Florida. Well, he still has 1 year of eligibility left. And when Hunter Duplessis decided to leave, and Hunter and Jared are good friends, Hunter said, man, you need to come back. You can trust this guy. You're going to love playing for him. And Jared Sackett, who was a All-American freshman guy in 2018, is going to be back as next year's kicker, and at least one of the guys competing for the job. And it's all because of the notoriety that has come from UTSA because of Jeff.
Finally, Andy, you are on the road to Houston. UTSA men's basketball taking on the Rice Owls tonight. UTSA has not fared well on the road this season. Is this a winnable game for them?
It is, but I think Rice, it kind of depends on how well Rice plays. Rice is an outside shooting team. They have 3 really good guards, and they have a 4th one that sometimes gets into the mix. UTSA leads the conference in total defense and defensive field goal percentage and rebounding, but they're last in the league in free throw percentage and field goal percentage. So it's been UTSA's offense that's prevented them from winning games this year. Defensively, rebounding, offensive rebounding, they've been pretty good, but they just can't get the ball to go in the bucket enough, and they've been shooting under 40% for the most part in conference play. But if they can stop if they can stop Rice's guards, then yes, they've got a shot. But those 3 guards are pretty good, and when they get going, they can score 50. And if they do that, that's going to be hard to overcome.
Andy, we always appreciate you joining us on the Chris Duel Show, and thank you especially for today, the added challenge. You're already driving in this crazy Texas weather we're having, but to talk to us, best of luck getting to Houston. Drive safe and look out for those other drivers on the road.
Absolutely. I'm hoping I'll be there by noon, and we'll be able to talk to everybody tonight at 6:30 in San Antonio. So all the best to both of you.
Andy,
always a pleasure, Andy. Be safe.
The voice of the UTSA Roadrunners. You can catch him tonight for that UTSA men's basketball game against the Rice Owls. Coach A, our time is nearing an end, unfortunately, but I've enjoyed these last 2 days with you. I think we have some future days lined up later this month when Chris does his yearly vacation during the All-Star break. I'm looking forward to it.
This has been fun. I'm so appreciative for the opportunity. That goes for Chris and Shannon. It's just a kick working with you. And I want to say this too. Dave is a stud. You don't know this because this is kind of inside baseball stuff, but this has been a little bit hard to coordinate this morning because of the weather and Shannon's at home and stuff like that. And we didn't miss a beat. And he did that all with baling wire and bubble gum, and it was amazing. All I can say is that's a guy that would have gotten Apollo 13 home safely.
I don't know if Dave wears a step count tracker, like a smartwatch or anything, but the number of times that he's run around that station and into your studio and back to his studio today, I'm sure he can go home and rest easy and eat whatever he wants the rest of the day because he's burned all of the calories.
I got a lot of exercise in today, so that's one good thing about this.
A lot of steps.
There you go. And that's needed in radio, as we know. We get paid in food and beer mostly, so it's good whenever we can get that added exercise in. Everyone, thanks so much for listening. We hope you stay warm. We hope you stay safe today and even into tomorrow morning, as conditions look like they will remain icy for some time. Special thanks to Coach A, Paul Alexander, and Dave this morning for, again, putting it all together with little kid scissors, Elmer's glue, and whatever tape we could find that's probably 10 years old and was hanging out in the back of a closet. Chris will be back tomorrow, refreshed, renewed, a new man probably, walking in those doorways, sitting down and taking on that microphone after he's finished with his retreat to forgive Kawhi Leonard. We will break it all down with him and see how their relationship is, see how much has been repaired, how much has been healed, and to see if that hatred has truly left him after Kawhi so rudely left the Spurs all those years ago. Please make sure you stay safe. If you can stay home, please do. If you missed any part of the show and you are staying home, check us out on the podcast page at Chris Duel Show, on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, on iTunes, wherever you listen to podcasts. Again, please stay safe. It's going to be a cold one out there. You've been listening to the Chris Duel Show. Thank you so much, and stay warm. Peace.
Dave, thank you.